everyone, welcome back for part 2 of our Read or Unhaul vlog series. We started the series with 8 books. In the first video, I spun a wheel and it picked The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles. I really enjoyed that book. I also read Ways of Hearing, which was a nonfiction book from my list. Go watch that video if you haven't yet to see my thoughts on both of those books. At the end of that video, I spun the wheel again to pick my next read, and it gave me Marvelous by Molly Greeley. I have recently finished this book. I really thought that this was the one that was most likely of all of them to be a DNF, but I actually ended up loving this book. I thought the writing was gorgeous. It is a historical retelling of the true story behind the Beauty and the Beast legend, and it's really just the story of a marriage and of a family. It's a really beautiful but understated love story and a story about motherhood. To me, the tone and the style of the prose read very similarly to the Song of Achilles, where it's a little bit like a historical record, but there's still a lot of emotion and interiority of the characters. I also think that it is likely similar to Hamnet, which I haven't read yet, but I know that that book explores motherhood and loss, big themes in this book as well. I'm really glad that this came up and that I read it because I had a lot of fun with this book. I also picked up and read the other nonfiction on my list, which was Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. I don't even know how to describe the genre. It's not a memoir or anything. I mean, it's just kind of straight up nonfiction. Gawande is a doctor and he decided to explore medicine's relationship to end-of-life care. I know that sounds sad and morbid, but he wrote it in such a way that it was grounded in real people's stories and it never got dry or boring or even really overly depressing. I actually really liked this book as well. And with that, we're halfway through the list. We have 4 books left. In ascending order by page count, we have Crossing to Safety by Wallace Stegner, My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, The Secret Wisdom of the Earth by Christopher Scotton, and All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. So in the last video, I outsourced my decision making to the wheel, so I would not have to pick which book to read next. This video, our decision making is going to be a little less up to chance, a little less random, and I am going to read the first sentence or small paragraph and decide which one I'm in the mood for. I obviously know a little bit about what each of these books is about, but honestly, I kind of want to go in blind, so to speak, so I'm not going to remind myself of the plot or the synopsis or anything, and I'm not going to tell y'all anything about it until after I've selected the book. So first up is Crossing to Safety by Wallace Stegner. Okay, well, first of all, the font in this book, diabolical. Oh no. This font is so bad. Anyway, floating upward through a confusion of dreams and memory, curving like a trout through the rings of previous risings, I surface. My eyes open. I am awake. Okay. So we got a little first person going on. First person and definitely kind of lyrical writing, curving like a trout through the rings of previous risings. Okay, all right, go off, Mr. Stegner. Okay, next, My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. This morning, Reno telephoned. I thought he wanted money again, and I was ready to say no. But that was not the reason for the phone call. His mother was gone. So once again, first person. I'm noting this because Marvelous was written in third person and had a little bit of a distance in the prose, so I feel like a first person would be kind of nice. Plant me a little bit more directly in the middle of the story. Really, I want something plot driven, which I don't think any of these books are going to be, because that's not generally the type of books I have on my shelf, but it is what it is. Okay, next is The Secret Wisdom of the Earth by Christopher Scotton. The Appalachian Mountains rise a darker blue on the washed horizon if you're driving east from Indiana in the morning. The green hills of the Piedmont brace the wooded peaks like sandbags against a rising tide. The first settlers were hunters, trappers, and then farmers when the game went west. In between the hills and mountains are long, narrow hollows where farmers and cattle scratch a living with equal frustration. And under them, from the Tug Fork to the Clinch Valley, a thick plate of the purest bituminous, wow, I found a word I don't know. Bituminous coal on the eastern seaboard. Okay, it keeps going and it is also in first person. I wanted to see what the POV was. I see why I kept this book around for so long, because it's set in the Appalachian Mountains. Last we have All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. Also, I'm just reading full paragraphs by now. I should have said reading the first paragraph instead of the first sentence. Ooh, interesting. I think I had heard this book has short chapters, but each chapter is literally like a page long. From the flat roof of the kitchen, Patch looked out through serried pin oaks and white pine to the loom of St. Francois Mountains that pressed the small town of Montclair into its shade, no matter the season. Not a comma to be seen in that sentence. At 13, he believed entirely that there was gold beyond the Ozark Plateau, that there was a brighter world just waiting for him. Though later that morning, when he lay dying in the woodland, he'd take that morning still and purse it till the colors ran because he knew it could not have been so beautiful, that nothing was ever so beautiful in his life. Okay, wait. That's got a little something to it. That reminds me of the opening of The Secret History. I think it does the same thing where like from the very beginning, it's like, yeah, Bunny's dead, but how did Bunny die? So then you spend the book, uncovering. So I think the two that I'm most interested in are My Brilliant Friend and All the Colors of the Dark. Funny enough, both of them have like people dying in the first paragraph. Like I said, I think I just want plot driven. Let's go to the synopses for both of these. Friendship that lasts a lifetime. The story begins in the 1950s in a poor but vibrant neighborhood on the outskirts of Naples. Growing up on the tough streets, the two girls learn to rely on each other ahead of anything else. Their friendship through the years. All right. And this is translated from Italian. 1975. All of these books are historical fiction, but I think 75 might be the most recent of them all. Girls are disappearing in this small town in Missouri. Patch, a local boy, saves one of the girls. In doing so, leaves heartache in his wake. A missing person mystery, a serial killer thriller, a love story, a unique twist on each. Honestly, my main holdups with this book are that, number one, I don't read a lot of thrillers. Number two, it's over 600 pages long, which is a little crazy. And number three, this is petty. I'm petty sometimes about the reasons I don't like books or don't want to read books. I don't always enjoy or rock with the like celebrity book club picks. So I tend to stay away when I see those types of stickers. I will say though that The Lincoln Highway I think was also a read with Jenna book, and I really liked that one. So let me not be judgmental. Let me not judge a book, not by its cover, but by the sticker on its cover. I think I'm gonna give this one a try. I've said, 3 times that I want something a little more plot driven, and I think that this is most likely to give me that. Because it's so long, I think I'll probably give it at least 50 pages or so, and if I'm not sucked in or I'm not liking the writing or whatever, then I will happily call it a DNF. I literally got this book for free. It was sitting out on a table at work last fall, and I saw it. It had a sticky note on front, like free to a good home. Obviously somebody had read it, decided they wanted to move it on. I was like, oh, that's a really popular book. I'm sure somebody will pick that up and love it. And it sat there for probably 3 weeks, maybe longer. And I was about to be leaving that job and headed home, and I was like, okay, I mean, if nobody's gonna take the book, like I'll take the book. I didn't want it to get thrown out or something. So I was like, fine, obviously nobody else wants it, so I'm just gonna take it. So it is no great loss if I have to shuffle this book out to a little free library or something, because it was free. I'm gonna give it a shot. I will try popular commercial book club fiction, and we will see. We will see how it lands for me. I have read about 160 pages of All the Colors of the Dark. I kind of raced through that in I don't even know, an hour and a half or something of sitting outside. This book is really, really addictive for sure. Just wanted to give you a quick initial thoughts, initial review. I really can't say much about the plot beyond what's in the synopsis, because it would be just such a spoiler. Things move so quickly in this book. I'm kind of boggled by everything that's already happened in the first, 150, 160 pages. Basically, in this small town in Missouri in the 70s, girls are being kidnapped. And one day this really popular, beautiful girl is almost kidnapped, but this kid named Patch, who's kind of like a local misfit, saves her life. He does not come out unscathed from that encounter, and things kind of go from there. I'm already just oh my gosh, please, I need everybody to be okay, but I know they're not going to be because I don't think this is that kind of book. The thing that I've loved the most so far is that Patch has this friend named Saint. She's very Scout Finch coded. I just adore her. She's just the sweetest, funniest, most loyal little girl, and I need nothing bad to ever happen to her. Ever. I will say something interesting that I've noticed, like a pattern in my reading life recently. I started reading this and I was like, oh, that's so cute. She's a lot like Scout. And I started thinking back, like, wow, a lot of the books that I've read recently over, I would say the last month, maybe 2 months or so, have had these like scrappy young protagonists, which is funny because I don't usually like books with young protagonists, but I guess maybe I do now because I loved Scout and To Kill a Mockingbird. I loved our teen narrators in the Lincoln Highway. We have Saint and Patch and other kids in this book. I'm also currently rereading Tell the Wolves I'm Home, which has, I think she's 14, 15 narrator named June. All of these books, and what I love most about them, are these really sweet but scrappy young narrators. Just kind of something interesting that I noted. Anyway, I'm probably gonna go read a little bit more of this book. I have a feeling I'm gonna fly through this one over this weekend, and I am okay with that because I would love nothing more than to just spend the weekend curled up with a good book. So I am here to update you on All the Colors of the Dark, and the update is that I finished the book. I had stopped around page 400 out of 600, so I was like 2/3 of the way through the book. I was like, ooh, I should check in. I think the main problem was that there wasn't really anything I could tell you about the story or the characters. Basically anything I would say would be a spoiler. It kind of just ended up making more sense that I would get to the end of the book and be able to give you my final review anyway. So it's actually been at least 24 hours or so since I finished the book, and I've been thinking about it since then, in both a good and a bad way, I think. Ultimately, I feel pretty conflicted about this book. I think rating-wise, I'll probably end up at a 3, maybe a 3.5, but the problem is the longer I think about it, the more I find to not like. So probably a 3, which is not a bad rating. Like a 3 means that I liked the book, that there were things I enjoyed about the book, but for me, it had some problems. So let's start with the fact that this book is kind of unputdownable. I really can't believe how quickly I read a book of this size. I think it's written to be unputdownable. Very, very short chapters, like 1 to 2 pages, even short sentences, lots of dialogue, like the writing moves at a clip, the timeline moves at a fast pace. There are regular cliffhangers at the end of chapters, so he really wants you to keep turning the pages, and so you do. There's a lot of information that you as the reader don't know, and so that definitely keeps me turning the pages, wanting to figure out what is happening, what's going to happen to our characters, etc. It's really funny because when I look up this book on Storygraph, which is the online book tracker that I use, there is a section on Storygraph where in user reviews they can submit whether they think the book is plot or character driven or a mix. And I think close to 70% of people said that this was a mix of plot and character driven. Respectfully, I disagree. This was very plot driven, which funny enough, when I was introducing the books for this video, I said I wanted plot driven. I don't actually know if I like plot driven, if I'm being honest. I am such a character reader that even when I say I want something super plot heavy and that's gonna move, I found myself getting really frustrated and impatient with him. Like, why are you moving on so quickly? Can we not sit in this for a little bit? Can we not spend a little bit more time with this character? I want to know what they're thinking in this moment. I want to know the reasons why they made this decision. A lot of it is just left up to assumption, or he'll just kind of throw off a sentence and keep it moving. He has a lot of ground to cover. I think this book covers 30 years or so. So he had a lot to do, and it's pretty impressive everything he managed to cram into 600 plus pages. And it is also impressive how he managed to tie together so many different plot threads across this many pages. I think my main thing was that I got to the end and I just didn't really care. Like, he would do something where, you know, we'd be talking to a character and then all of a sudden we'd learn something about that character, like, oh, we learned their last name. And it was very obviously meant to be this kind of gasp moment because this person is obviously related to somebody we knew from earlier in the story. However, it had been like 300 plus pages and 25 years of material since we first met that person. So when the twist came, I was like, who? What? Like, it's obvious he wants this to be significant because of the way he wrote it, but I don't know what the significance is. Or there'd be some plot twist toward the end as all the mysteries kind of become clear. And I was like, I mean, fine, that's cool in a plot sense. I guess that's a satisfying way for the plot to go. But I just didn't care about the characters, so I didn't care about what happened. I mean, I don't want to say that I didn't care about what happened to them. There are a few characters, Saint especially, that consistently throughout the book I was most interested in their POV and their story. And it's not that I got to the end and I was like, yeah, they can all die for all I care. It wasn't necessarily that. I just got the sense the further I got into this book that these characters weren't actually real. Like, I never got the sense that these were real people we were reading about, which, please don't misunderstand me. I know that this is fiction, but I feel like the best fiction, or at least the fiction that I really enjoy, the characters feel like real people and you have real investment and empathy for them and their story. And everybody just felt a little two-dimensional in this book to me. Again, I think he just tried to fit in so much. You cannot believe how many different plot turns and twists and directions and characters, and this reads like 7 different books. You know, I had read half the book and then all of a sudden I was like, whoa, so now we have like a cops and robbers plot? There was a lot. Honestly, I think he was doing too much. Again, I appreciate what he was trying to do. For me, it just didn't create the impact and the resonance that I want a story like this to. I'm not mad that I read it. I am glad that it was free. I'm glad I didn't spend money on this or wait like 6 months in a library hold line, because I think I would have been really frustrated. This one I will definitely be unhauling and passing on to somebody else. So checking the longest book off of the list, off of my reader unhaul, I'm down to 3 left. I do think next I'm going to pick up My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. That was the other one that I read the first sentence or paragraph at the beginning of the video and thought, oh, that sounds pretty interesting to me right now. And I'm still really interested in it. And somebody also left a comment on my last video saying that this is a very summery read. They think summer is the perfect time of year to read this book, which thank you for that comment, by the way. And also, I love that feedback because I want to be a seasonal reader, but I think the typical kind of summer books I just don't necessarily gravitate towards or read, and so I just end up reading like depressing classics and stuff on the beach. I love that somebody said this has good summer vibes, so I'm excited to pick this one up next. Like I said earlier, this is about 2 young friends who were growing up in Naples in the 1950s. Funny enough, we once again have a young protagonist. Maybe this is just my new thing, but I'm excited to get to My Brilliant Friend soon. Again, I've had this book for probably 10 years, so it is way past time for me to finally dive into this book. I was down in a town in LA, trying to override what I couldn't erase. Today's fit. I always feel like Donna from Mamma Mia when I wear these. Will you look at what the tide washed in? Something I could do, never say your name. 'Cause I only miss you when you are gone. I'll do move on. I always tell myself it's time for someone new. I see your face again, oh no, I see your face again. I saw a silhouette and
for someone new. And I see your face again. Oh no, I see your face again. I saw a silhouette and wish that it was you. Hope that I see your face again. Oh no, I see your face again. 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 Will I see your face again? Wanna see your face again. Will I see your face again? I see your face again. I see your face again. I see your face again.
I am here to confess myself a bad vlogger because I finished My Brilliant Friend and I gave you absolutely zero updates as we read. I am so sorry. I had a big family reunion this last weekend. It was a ton of fun and I read the book kind of, before bed in pieces over the weekend, but couldn't really update you. So I will just give you one big update and review now. I have a lot of thoughts about this book. I want to make sure that I tell you everything that I want to, but that I also don't ramble for 30 minutes because I actually think that I could. Since I didn't update you as I went, let me give you an idea of what I was thinking about this book as I went along. When I first started it, and I think I read about 50 pages, I just thought, wow, this writing is really good. And it must be said, the translation as well. I really like this type of writing. It's not flowery. It's really quite straightforward, but there still manages to be something so beautiful about it. I am coming away very impressed by the writing in this book. That initial impression did not change as I went. I will say the middle 150, maybe even 200 pages, I just was thinking, what is the point? I really wasn't enjoying myself. It was a little bit boring. It was very depressing. We will get to this when I start, sharing some later thoughts about themes and stuff like that. It was definitely a slow burn, the growth of me caring about these characters and feeling invested in them and feeling empathy for them. They grew in dimension as the book went, for sure, and started feeling much more three-dimensional. And by the end, I was just really invested. I really cared. It kind of stops just in the middle of this event. There's a sentence, oh, so-and-so is wearing so-and-so's shoes. And then the book just stops. Say more, please. Say more. It honestly really, really, really grew on me to the point that I feel like I want to give this book a high 4, maybe even a 4.5 star rating. And I do definitely want to keep going with this series. This is a quartet. There are 4 books, and I want to know what happens in these women's lives. This book covers childhood and adolescence. I think the girls are 16 when the book ends. I need to know what happens next to them. I'm not feeling a huge urgency to pick it up immediately, but I do definitely want to keep going in this series. Switching hands so it's more comfortable. So I want to review this book by way of comparing it to 2 other books, which may seem weird, but stick with me. So this is a book about girlhood and female friendship. And so, of course, it brought to mind other books that I've read about female friendship and girlhood. The 2 that I really want to focus on and compare this to, ooh, sorry, hummingbird. Sorry, I'm distracted, squirrel, but it's a hummingbird. Oh, I can't explain to you how much joy my bird feeders have brought me. I am really in my full, just middle-aged bird watching era. Anyway, back to the book. The 2 other books that I want to compare this book to are The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford and Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery, just kind of the series in general. All 3 talk about female friendship and what it's like to be a young woman in a very specific place in a very specific time. So this book is 2 young women living in a small village on the outskirts of Naples in the 1950s, and they have a tough life. It is a very tough place to live. Violence is just kind of everywhere, and it's normalized. Physical violence, emotional violence, abuse, domestic abuse. This is a very, very patriarchal society that these girls live in. And part of the reason that I didn't necessarily enjoy reading large parts of this book, and I found it kind of depressing, is that these girls are so vulnerable. And I don't even know if they realize how vulnerable they are and how much danger they're in, basically at every moment. Like, we, I think, can see how much danger the men, especially around them, pose to them. But it was tough to read in parts because I just wanted to get these girls out of there. And to be fair, they also want to get out of there, but they don't see an option. They don't see a way out. They really have very little way of meeting anybody outside of this village where they live. Control over their lives is, largely determined by their fathers and brothers and boyfriends, and not even boyfriends, just men who decide that they want control over these young women's lives. So that was really, really tough. It just made me feel really, really sad for them. Nothing ever feels viscerally disgusting. There was one short scene that, if you've read it, you probably know what I'm talking about, that I just felt like, oh, please get her out of here. Thankfully, it was very short. She speaks really matter-of-factly, and there's never any sort of what is the word? Sensationalization? My brain literally cannot think of how to conjugate this word, but you know what I'm saying. There's never gratuitous violence against women, but violence against women runs through every page of this book. Leela, especially, who is the friend of our narrator, she feels a little difficult to love at first. We only see her through the eyes of her friend, Elena, who does love Leela, but in a really complicated way. They have a bit of a toxic friendship, I will say, at least from Elena's perspective. We never get Leela's perspective. This is a very first-person POV from Elena, and she herself is a teenage girl going through the sorts of things teenage girls go through. But she has a very, almost troubling sometimes, view of Leela and their relationship. It's very competitive. She's pretty selfish. We see Leela make decisions that just seem so uninformed and insane. But this is what I'm saying, in that it being a slow burn. The farther we got through the book, the more and more I realized how trapped Leela is and how few options she has. She seems innately to be a little stubborn, a little scrappy, but her life situation has made her hard and has made her tough and has made her, as Elena tells her at one point, "You're mean." It has made her mean. She has to be to survive, and she's put in these situations where she has to choose the lesser evil just to try and minimize the damage to herself. But speaking of the POV and the friendship between these two girls, this is why I thought about The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford, because in that book we see Fanny, who is our first person narrator, and her relationship with her cousin, but really it's more like a friendship, Linda. And in that book, Fanny is the narrator and is the first person POV, but Linda is the main character. Fanny is telling Linda's story. The Fanny-Linda dynamic is that Fanny is the smart one, the bookish one, the more in the background one, and Linda is always the center of attention. She's too gorgeous for her own good. She's outgoing and friendly and spunky. Their dynamic is very similar, I think, to Elena, who is the bookish, smart one, not as pretty, at least in the way that she describes herself. And then Leela, who has this just magnetic personality, and everybody is just obsessed with her, at first sight. Because Elena is our narrator, but she's so hyper-focused on Leela, and so is everybody else, it feels more like Leela's story at times than it does Elena's. I will say that Elena Ferrante gives her Elena more interiority. She is a much more fleshed out character than Fanny is in The Pursuit of Love, but the dynamic, again, remains very much the same. Tonally, they could not be more different, because this book, again, is very serious and very matter of fact, and we're focused on a very poor neighborhood. Elena Ferrante, do a great job of capturing the time and place through the lives of these teenage girls. And similarly, Nancy Mitford captures the time and place of England in the mid-war period, so, 1920s, early 30s. And her girls are, especially Linda, they're bright young things. So this is the aristocracy, the upper middle class in the interwar period. And she, once again, really captures that time and place, but her tone is very satirical, laugh out loud, funny sort of way. Tonally very different, but I will say, if you liked this book, or you like the idea of books exploring girlhood and you want maybe a classic that's a little more lighthearted and fun, I cannot recommend The Pursuit of Love and the follow-up book, Love in a Cold Climate, enough. Nancy Mitford books are such a delight, and I want to recommend them every chance that I get. Okay, I'm putting this down. This is getting annoying. I also, like I said, wanted to talk about Anne of Green Gables. Anne and her dear bosom friend, her kindred spirit, Diana. So much of the first book especially is about their friendship, but the tone in which Ellen Montgomery chooses to explore that friendship is just so much friendlier and lighter, despite the fact that, you know, Anne has been through difficult things. She's an orphan and she's trying to acclimate to life in a new place. Montgomery just chose to make it a much more sweet and sentimental and lighthearted book. So once again, that's another good recommendation if you want something totally different from the other two. And I just actually really love how all three of them tackle girlhood and female friendship, but come away with such different feelings, but still all manage to capture something true. There is a certain amount of overlap in the relationships and what these girls get into together, and maybe some fights or disagreements that they have and how they resolve them. And there's just so much about being a teenage girl that just feels very universal. And My Brilliant Friend especially just captures it, I think, in the most realistic way. And that probably is why it's maybe the toughest to read of the three. So like I said, I really, really enjoyed this book. I think this is definitely my favorite of all the books I've read for this Read or Unhaul series so far. I will be hanging on to this one. And again, I want to try and get to the sequels at some point. I am now at 6 out of the 8 books that I wanted to tackle in this series. I'm feeling good about my progress. I'm pretty busy the rest of the month, so it might be tricky to squeeze the last 2 in, but hoping for a win. I will have one more vlog in this series where I'll probably wrap up my thoughts about the last 2 books if I end up getting to them, and then maybe do some fun unhauling. We might go to some little free libraries. We might treat ourselves by going to the bookstore. Who knows? It'll be a good time. So make sure that you subscribe so you can stick around and not miss those videos. While you're down there, give this video a like. I really appreciate your support, and I will see y'all next time.